Yeah.
It's just 40K but little. People need 40K but little sometimes. Hey everybody, welcome to the Inside Tabletop. I'm here with Chris.
What's going on?
My retail guru.
I'm back again.
Back again.
Wear the same clothes.
More of the same clothes. A whole month.
We need
We've been wearing the same clothes for a month.
Wardrobe changes.
a month in the same clothes. God, it stinks in here. If you haven't been to Inside Tabletops before, this is two guys who've worked in the tabletop gaming industry for collectively almost 50 years. You've owned your own hobby shop for 10 years. You worked in retail for me for 10 years before that. I worked in the last 10 years in the digital space, writing books, doing the marketing that I do for all the independent designers and stuff like that. And before that, I was 15 years with Workshop as well. So we tend to sit and talk about current events, things in the hobby, things that are interesting. We've done 3 of these already today. This is our last one today, so we're probably a little punchy now.
A little bit. We're the edge is off.
Yeah, the edge is off. That's right. Yeah. Also, the filters are slightly loose.
Yes.
So you might get slightly more unfiltered versions of this. But we've been also hanging out with my patrons. This is all filmed live with the chat, basically, of GMG patrons. They do some topic selection as well for us to talk about, ask us questions. And we have, in between each of these recordings, we do a sort of a Q&A where we sit and get feedback and answer questions and stuff, too. So if you are a GMG patron, and that happens live, just like not Inside Tabletop, the Indie Hour, and also the Monday shows, which sometimes also happen on a Wednesday, but not anymore because we have the Indie Hour that happens on Wednesdays. So a lot of behind the scenes GMG After Dark stuff happens there, and yeah, you can jump in and enjoy it if you want. But today's topic is one near and dear to my heart, and it's us talking about the fact that 40K is so big it needed another smaller bucket to catch the 40K players in. And that's talking about how Warhammer 40,000 Kill Team has become the third pillar at Games Workshop, which I think is fascinating.
Yeah. There's so many angles to that too, I think.
Yeah. And I think this is really interesting to talk about, why did this happen? And what is the Venn diagram inside Warhammer 40,000 that it's gotten so big that it needs its own subcategory, right? To keep its customers from falling out. And I think that's a really interesting place for a game to be, where there's multiple levels at which you can interact with it. And so that's what I want to talk to you about today, is what does the reality of that look like in the gaming store from it's the biggest game in the market. Warhammer 40,000 is undeniably the largest, most heavily populated, biggest income generating sector of the tabletop wargaming industry. Yep. If you just took it by itself out of Games Workshop, it probably still makes more money than all the other companies put together. Especially when you add in licensing, the Space Marine 2 money, anything with the 40K logo, basically. If that's a pool of money that people interact with, the novels, you could probably tangentially throw in Horus Heresy there too. That it needs its own historical version of the game.
I know, it's crazy. Yeah.
But why Kill Team? Why has Kill Team been so successful? And I think we should take a little history look at when it started.
Right.
Because the 4th edition book had the Combat Patrol,
40K
in 40 minutes kind of thing.
The side rules in the book. Right?
And this is kind of an extension of that. You took a squad, or you took a 500-point army or whatever. We're kind of down the road now too. And they used to call it Lunch Hammer. They had remember there was 40K in 40 minutes, Lunch Hammer. It had a bunch of different names. Combat Patrol is the original one.
Yeah, it had a lot of almost little moments or whatever where oh, this is cool, and but it never had any sort of staying power or. And
Combat Patrol exists.
It does,
but Kill Team is better than Combat Patrol, and is also definitely selling better and more heavily played than Combat Patrol is at almost the same scale.
I don't know. Just speaking from my own experience, Combat Patrol doesn't seem to be a part of the culture at all. It's just not. Really I'm not saying people don't play.
And I think they've tried to make it that way, and I do think people play it. But I think that it's funny. So let's talk about that for a second. Because you have Warhammer 40,000, you have Combat Patrol, you have Kill Team. Combat Patrol has not become its own bucket, I guess is what we should say. Not that it's failed or hasn't succeeded. It is its own thing. But it hasn't become a bucket the way Kill Team is a bucket of money. A separate, but still aligned with the same model collection game. Yeah. Right? That is its own pillar. I have a theory. I'm going to bounce this off you, and then you tell me if you think I'm right or not. At the mass combat scale of Warhammer 40,000, you are experiencing the Battle of Hoth in Star Wars. You are experiencing the big shit moving around and fighting. It's supposed to represent a company level engagement where there's all kinds of big set pieces that might be on the battlefield, super heavy tanks, transports. It's a detached 10,000 foot view of the game. Not quite to the scale that we would want it to be at, where we get to like Legions Imperialis and the old epic scale,
Right.
but like a manageable to the size of the table. And
bird's eye view sort of thing. Yeah.
But even at that, it has gotten to be a very big, detached, abstract game. It takes like 4 hours to play a game now.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Follow that thought through.
And,
how much does it cost to buy?
And exactly. And
how much time does it take to build that stuff?
And a Warhammer army costs
and
thousands of dollars now. Remember they did a web series that was like, what's the cheapest 40K army? And it was like, it was Custodes by a mile. But even then it was like, it's still like $1,000.
Yeah.
It's like $1,000 to play this game at like the standard game size with no options. It's like $1,000 to play. And then you have Comp Patrol, which is not $1,000 to play, but it's like, it's the same level of detachment, except you have less stuff and it's faster.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think that's inherently less satisfying. One side could be destroyed completely, tabled out, and you're still trying to play for the same abstracts of like stand in circles and push buttons, right? There's not a lot of story to the game. You just play it with less stuff. So I think inherently that feels like a light version of the real thing.
I think you hit the nail on the head there. It feels, I don't know, it's like cheapened, but like it does feel a little bit like you're like getting the diet sugar-free soda or whatever, but not for the right
But
reasons.
even worse.
Way
you know
worse.
what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like watching a trailer and thinking you've seen the movie.
Yeah, sure.
Right?
Sure.
It's not the same thing as sitting down and enjoying the entire movie.
And I think you've answered a lot of the questions already, but like the way I look at Kill Team is I think, what problems did it solve? And I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there, where you think about it right off the bat, like who's buying these things? Who's buying the Kill Teams?
Who's it for?
And primarily, I see it in two demographics. The most, everybody's buying Kill Team, but like the most people I see on the really young end, people entering the hobby. That's where I see a lot of the Kill Team stuff. As it's being like people's first experiences. And then on the other end of the people that feel time squeezed and don't have the same like time they had when they were 20,
that kitchen table game.
They love the 40K universe, and this gives them a way to experience that in a deep and meaningful way. Like you said, not a light version, but like it's got its depth to itself.
It's more cinematic, right? It's a full interesting game.
Yeah.
And more interestingly, you always almost end the game with something still on the table. And the games almost are never like a foregone conclusion on turn 2.
No, because it's like it's like real over pretty quick, right?
Yeah.
Like, and you have to always every turn you're doing something, you're in the action right away,
and you're reacting sometimes too, right? Because it's model by model back and forth. It's not all my shit goes, all your shit goes.
It's much more of a modern war game than their other properties.
It is, well, and that's the last thing is it is literally a modern war game. The current iteration of the game is from 2022, right? Like even the 2018, it stepped away from being light Warhammer, because the 2018 version is still Warhammer rules.
Yep.
And Warhammer stat lines. And in 2022, they said like, fuck it, new game completely.
And that's when it actually
blew up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other problem it solves, which I can't say this is the main thing, but because like you said, the 2018 version did okay, but it didn't become this thing that it's become. So it can't be the main driver, but like the size of it is really important, I think, like for it to catching on. Like the fact that like you can fit it on any person who has a table at home can play
this,
this or smaller even, right? I think we talked about this on one of the last podcasts we did about this topic, Kill Team, is the ability for that game to get into like card shops. Like it fits on a card table, which is like only like this wide or whatever, and they can actually play Kill Teams like they play Magic games or whatever, like head to head or whatever. And they can sell, a much more cut down range of miniatures and actually introduce that to people that haven't actually done it before. And I think that's like a really powerful thing, is like getting into the hobby. There's so many people that like look at it and it feels very hard and difficult and overwhelming. And Kill Team is the smallest bite size that you could probably take.
But still feels like a full game.
But it's a delicious bite, and you get like a lot out of that bite. if that makes sense. Yeah. Like,
so now what does that say though about the ceiling on the collection that you might have of your Warhammer miniatures? Is it too big now? Like, what can Warhammer 40,000 learn from Kill Team? I think is the next question. What does 11th edition learn from Kill Team? Do they want you to have one $4,000 collection of miniatures or multiple $500 collections of miniatures that keep you re-engaged in the hobby? Because I think the question about Kill Team being so successful is it creating new 40K customers, or is it recapturing customers they lost out of 40K? And that's the real question that I want to ask you from this like beat from the street point of view of, are your Kill Team customers all new customers completely? I'm sure some of them are.
No.
Or are a lot of them guys who just got sick of playing Warhammer at this like massive scale? Because I think that's an interesting question for the what comes next. And that's where this turns into not so much a conversation about Kill Team, but about Warhammer 40K in general. Is there a sweet spot that they've just pushed so far past? I'd love to hear in the comments too, guys, what you think about this. Is there a sweet spot that they've moved so far past that the games become not just unapproachable, but also unsustainable for some people, where they have this fallback position now in Kill Team they can go to, where it's like, oh, thank God. Like I don't want to paint another 10,000 Space Marines. I want to paint a box of Space Marines. I want to paint a box of Guardsmen. I want to paint a box of Chaos Marines. I want to paint a box of like Chaos Cultists or whatever it ends up being, right? Like that's a way more sustainable hobby. And also it captures things that keep people in a hobby, like novelty. Not doing the same thing over and over and over again, right? And like you can also get that build, paint, play cycle completed more often. And you and I both know, having worked in this industry so often, that's the difference. That's the daylight sometimes between someone staying in the hobby or not.
Totally.
Did they get to the reward?
Yep.
And the longer it takes you to get to the reward, the less likely you are to repeat it over and over again, right?
Yeah.
Like people like climbing Everest. They don't do it every year. You know what I mean? Yeah. But I'll go for a hike. Yeah. I'll go for a hike on the weekend because I love getting outside and I love going in the woods.
Yeah, I think separating that, like the simplest thing to say is like Kill Team has created this wonderful buffer around 40K. I think like that they never expected it to be, and if they did, like wow,
it might be a little more intentional.
Yeah, like I think like they learned what it could be and they found a really good spot for it. But that buffer being like it works in both directions, like you said, where you get this. The perfect way to paint this for like people getting into the hobby is like imagine, and people have been in a situation like imagine you're a person, you have a group of friends, you know, you're 18 to 24 years old or whatever, and you're really into miniatures. There's no question about it, right?
Sure, you like tabletop games, yeah.
But like most of your friends are like your friend, and they do things you like too, and you all play video games together or whatever, and like they have some interest, but like they're not really sure, and they're not like diehard like mini guys like you are. I think
it's a big ask.
It's a big ask to ask someone to come play 40K with me. Come spend, like you said, $1,000 plus time, energy, money. I think what you're seeing with Kill Team is it's closing that sale on people that you never would have committed in the past, and now they've entered into the hobby. You've got a hobby,
and they've got to complete the loop potentially.
Whether they even stick with it, like you know that guy who's got the 3 friends that he managed to start Kill Team with, that guy's ecstatic, man. He gets to play Kill Team with his buddies or whatever. You know, that never happened before. I might have actually had a few friends if that kind of was around when I was playing when I was a teenager. I feel like that would have been a much easier ask for some of the friends that I had, to get them into the hobby. So. And then on the way out, like you said, I think you described it really well. I think there is a byproduct of this 3-year cycle that they're being very open and clear about now and every 3-month data slates and the FAQs and the
the marketing death march that is Warhammer 40K.
Yeah, is that inevitably that people burn out of it, they stop playing, and Games Workshop knows this, and they have elaborate things to catch you in their web as you try to like leave the 40K universe, right? I think Kill Team forms that first buffer now.
I think media is the first buffer.
Media?
I think video games and their books and their now TV shows are going to be the first thing. And I'll give you an example. It's because it used to be White Dwarf. It used to be if you had a subscription to White Dwarf and you got too much time and attention away from something, you still had that show up at your house, you were still lightly engaged.
Yeah.
And then you come back at some point.
But I mean, like before you've even left the hobby. Like,
but yes,
you know what I mean?
But Kill Team is the thing that you can then do to express that interest back in. That isn't a huge amount of time commitment. Exactly. So I do agree with you there.
Yeah, so they're like scaling back on their commitment essentially.
Sure.
And like reattaching with what they like about it in a way, right?
And they've done a bunch of moves to try and make that more accessible too, making the rules free, making the data cards free, making the basics of like being able to engage with it free as an app is a big open door to like, we already have the miniatures.
Yep.
Come play.
And I think it's good for them to be like, look, we know where our bread is buttered. We make a lot of money selling 40K miniatures and armies to people. And we get that like that everyone's not going to be that person. But we can get some money off of you if you're not doing that. Mm-hmm. And that's honestly why I think they'd spend probably more money than looks rational on specialist game products.
Yeah.
Like to like an accountant, if you had to explain like why
do we have multiple Warhammers?
Why do you have Escher upgrade packs in plastic?
Yeah.
Well, let me explain that. This is going to take a while, but like, but like, it's just another elaborate way for them to be like, well, I think and I've seen this time and time again over the years, it's like, as long as people are in the Games Workshop ecosystem, there's always a chance they bounce back into 40K again and start spending the big bucks.
That's it. Yep. So then I guess the second half of this turns into, what can 40K learn from Kill Team? That kickstand was required for them to probably catch some of this consumer base, because regardless of whether they were maybe going to leave 40K or not, they're probably spending more now than they would in Kill Team if they already had their existing 40K army that they probably weren't going to change or expand or do a whole bunch of stuff with. Because Kill Team is like I can paint 10 more guys and have an entirely new experience. Yep. Right? I can go wide instead of going deep into one thing. And that's it feels intentional and smart version of game design. And we've seen it already in Age of Sigmar because Spearhead did it. Mm-hmm. Spearhead honestly is the closest analog to Kill Team in Age of Sigmar.
Yes.
Right?
I still wish there was a even smaller one. I forget, what's that? War? No, I do actually.
He was being facetious.
I was being a bit of a...
He's being smart. He's being cute. Yeah, I gotcha.
Yeah. No. I know Worker has its fans, but like they're few and far between, and I just think there could be something more there.
I completely agree. I completely agree. Well, and they already tried the Comp Patrol version where they made it just light AOS by having the every army thing that they did in the first edition. I think that there is like some middle ground they can find there. And the nice thing about Workshop is you only got to wait 3 years and they will institutionally change.
They're going to try something different.
They're going to try something different, new. Yeah. And that's where I'm like, well, we're coming up on it. 2025 is our last year in 10th. And then we're into 11th edition sometime in 2026, right? If the 3-year model cycles through again, right? Because when was it? 2023 was when we did 10th.
Yeah, we got like 13 months left or 14 months left
of this edition.
So like, it's crazy if you feel. I say that a lot of people go, they scream with their eyes. Ah.
but what can 40K learn from this success with Kill Team about its customers? Because I do think that says something, that they've had. The money was there.
It says they can have their cake and eat it too.
The money was there. The money was there for something at this scale or in this theme that wasn't being pushed into Warhammer 40K. Because it was going to go to 40K, it would be going to 40K, and Kill Team wouldn't be something. You can't sell this. You can't sell like Diet Coke and Coke Zero at the same time in equal amounts, and they are. And that's what this is.
Right.
This is the same thing effectively. Yeah. 0 calorie thing. It's the same exact product, just marketed differently and with a different flair on it. And yes, obviously I know those two things do something different. I don't eat aspartame, so I don't do Diet Coke. But like that's that whole like idea that you can sell somebody something twice. There has to be a manifest difference for that to actually make money, and it is. Yeah. So my curiosity is, does 40K need to shrink? Does the way it's played need to change to capture these people that weren't as interested in it as they are something like Kill Team? Because I do think that there's an answer there. And I do think there's like, we're going to see that happen in this edition if they've done any kind of institutional learning. Because you definitely can't keep pushing the model count higher and the cost higher. No, that's not sustainable. And this is the one time I will agree with the internet of the like Warhammer is too expensive thing. Warhammer is too expensive if you need to keep making your collection bigger. And also, it's too expensive in my time. I'm not willing to spend 4 hours doing anything anymore. The Snyder Cut was a fucking slog, man. I don't want to watch anything that long. 4 hours of nothing. There is nothing that interests me that much anymore. Right? Like 3 to 4 hours for a game of Warhammer 40,000. And I'll anecdotally tell you what that looked like. I walked into to Winter War, which is the Tactical Awareness, the Infinity podcast. We've handed off the tournament series to a guy named Greg. He's a local hobby champion for Infinity. And he ran a great 20-person Infinity tournament. I went and showed up and tried to support him. At the same time, in the same venue, which is a huge gaming space here in Ontario, they were having a Warhammer 40,000 tournament. And they'd started 3 hours before us, and they still weren't finished when we left. And we played 3 games of Infinity, had lunch, chilled out, did our award ceremony, and they were still going for a 3-game 40K tournament.
Oh, yeah.
And they didn't have to set up or take down terrain. They had literally the same terrain on every table.
Yeah, they had the printed maps.
It was the same 3D printed like 40K corners terrain. It looked good because it was all spray painted different colors. Right. So it was all painted differently, interpreted differently, but it was the same terrain on they had probably 25, 30 players, and they were still running their event, and they'd gone 3 hours to either side of us basically, right? To run this same amount of gaming. That's a huge time investment. Mm-hmm. So when I say games which is too expensive, I don't mean dollars necessarily either. I mean in my time. And to build their armies probably took 10 times as long either, right? So you're talking about 50, 60, 70 models a side, plus giant, huge, dildo-y, whatever the hell it is, things, big old robots and demon princes and whatever those things end up being. And those are the prestige models. That's what's cranking the price too, because if you got 3 or 4 of those aside, they're all $250 each. That really escalates fast. Sure. So what can Warhammer learn from Kill Team to make it so that maybe they can go wide instead of going deep? What would you as a retailer want to see so that you could make the same money?
I don't know. Part of me, my brain goes quickly to is there a problem? Because the sales numbers just keep going up, and they've created these buffer products that are gonna scratch those itches for people that don't want that main thing anyways. So are they crafting solutions outside of the game?
Seems like it.
You know what I mean? Is that their strategy? So it feels to me like they don't think it's a problem at all. And that's just based on where those AOS and 40K have been going in the last number of years. They're not getting smaller, they're not getting simpler.
Well, AOS is still manifestly smaller than 40K, though.
It is.
Model count-wise.
It is smaller.
And dollar count-wise,
It is a bit cheaper, yeah.
And the game is faster.
I would probably say that before 4th edition, maybe. But
I don't know, man. The game feels a lot faster just when you have splash damage going through. Splash damage, wounds splashing through into a unit.
But they did a big thing this edition by they lowered rend on everything, and you can't +1 save anymore. Sorry, everything just got seemed less killy.
Sure.
In 4th edition, but yeah, I don't know. It's part of just I don't know if they think it's a problem at all. That's what it feels like to me, at least. Okay. I don't know. What I personally want to see is very different than what I think.
Hang on a second. Before you move on, I'm going to agree with you.
Yeah.
I don't think they think it's a problem at all right now in this edition of the game.
Yeah.
So we have no template to go off of. What I'm saying is, if we leap ahead and we say that when they make the new edition, they don't just photocopy this one and change 3 things in it, which they've done 3 times now.
Yes.
Right? No new stat lines, no new, it's just the same game 3 times with now you use less stratagems, now you use more. They're changing the soup isn't different. They're just adding different salt and pepper to it, basically. But the amount of miniatures and the time keeps escalating, right? And then the officialness of the format where they incorporated the ITC and the ITC scoring and
that's become more standardized.
Well, that wasn't an 8th, and now it's a 9th and 10th, right? Yeah. So that's changed. So I agree with you 100% on that.
Yeah.
What could they do is what I'm saying. If a space has needed to be made for people that have fallen out of it to land in Kill Team, What could they do to make it more accessible, make it a wider on-ramp? Because I'm not saying that they even think it's going to happen, but what would make it easier for you to sell more 40K to people that don't already play 40K?
That's a good question. That's a really good question. I think casual gaming is taking a big hit in the last 5 years. Like just people feeling like it's okay to be that way, because like the big push for match play and how much online chatter, even from like Games Workshop's own, Warhammer community mouthpiece, so much of the articles are focused on that sort of like side of the hobby. And then of course, like all of the third-party online people are just like talking about tournaments and list making and changes. And one of the byproducts of like clicks and like videos, it's like if your job is to make content, even if it's your part-time job, and like the company makes changes every week, or like there's always, that just creates more talk about that stuff all the time, right? So I feel like more of an effort, even if it's not initially seeming like it's going to be getting clicks, or it's even easy to feel like it's going to generate money, more effort, direct effort from the heart of Games Workshop to push more of a like, this is how you could play it another way. Like I don't really think they've ever really done that in recent years. Because so many people getting into the hobby now, I think are feeling intimidated to even play at all, because of just how much of a ordeal it is to figure all that stuff out, right? I can't even get a Pariah Nexus chapter approved deck because like they're out of print. It's like, well, you don't need that, man. Like like I don't know. And it's funny now. Like we live in an era now where like people, how they behave at home with their models is shaped so much by like what they think is okay online. Like people say online is okay, right?
The influence of the group.
Oh my goodness, like it's crazy, right? So I don't know how you change that overnight. I don't think you can. I think you can start to proactively influence it culturally from like they have to start somewhere. You know what I mean? Like YouTubers aren't just going to start doing that. Like they need to start doing that, and then I don't know what that looks like exactly. Obviously, like reducing model count would always be helpful, but I don't know that they'll ever do that. Like I don't know. Like it's like
I think you can simplify it. I think you can. I think that there is. Well, sorry, I'll let you finish. I have a version of what I'd like to see based on what they've learned that I will pitch right now, and if it comes true, then I'll just look like a fucking genius.
Part of the problem with things like Combat Patrol, which in theory would be a perfect solution to like the casual gamer, I think, is, for me at least, like I look at a game that size and I'm like, that would actually ideally be like what I would want to engage with at this point in my
Me too.
life, right? But it's not. I actually would like to see some version of that where like I can switch units out and like do some more interesting things, and and that would give it more longevity, and I'd be more interested in doing, so I think developing that into something more robust.
That's where
having that be the casual engine for the company.
So let's talk about my 11th edition wish list.
Okay.
Based on Kill Team and based on Combat Patrol.
Cool.
I think the beauty of Kill Team versus Spearhead is you have a theme for your squad, but you have some decisions inside it of who you take and how many. So you do feel like you're making meaningful choices.
There are some choices,
inside that, which is different from Spearhead.
Yes.
With Spearhead, you have some amount of that franchise that happens, but a curated force selection. I think Warhammer 40,000 could marry those two things and make a Combat Patrol worth playing, where you have like companies. And this would even allow them to control their stock better, for you to merchandise better, and could be the power level version of Warhammer 40,000. Because I think that what they will never do is they'll never get rid of points. They'll never piss off their players who want that, like, they want that hyper-focused, granular version of the game. I think that will persist forever because they're too scared to get away with it. I think you can create an excellent middle ground game where the building blocks are combat patrols instead. We call them combat patrols today, but they're really little detachments.
Yeah.
And you could have a 1, 2, or 3 detachment size game.
There you go.
And inside the detachment is a miniature army list that you can then tinker with, because most of the kits in Warhammer 40K are multi-dual purpose. And what you do is you make that the building block, where these value-added boxes that are cheaper to buy, easier to assemble, can be the component that you engage with. And then you just need to make a format like Spearhead that's compelling to play, slightly more narrative and slightly more casual, and doesn't change. And you can update it seasonally as opposed to updating it all the time. The little, like, you can have pamphlets inside the boxes.
Don't be obsessed with balance.
And don't be obsessed with balance.
Don't be obsessed with balance. Yeah.
Be obsessed with the rule of cool, right? So you create these little Spearheady style comp patrol detachments. We'll just call them detachments for like a better buzzword. They're a building block. And if I want to scale up my game, I buy a second one in the same Imperium keyword.
Sure.
I bang them together. And you get the best of 8th edition all of a sudden, where I can have my, Black Templars hanging out with some Sisters of Battle.
Yeah.
And we play a game against each other. I can have my Chaos Demons hanging out with my whatever detachment of other Chaos Space Marines or whatever. You can curate that. And now you've got the same bonus they have in Spearhead with AOS with 40K, where you can have 20 boxes across the edition that can be paired up back and forth. You can release new ones over the 3-year cycle. You can mix and match them. And you have a format that is just not as demanding on people, but it can definitely retain that element of like customization by having multiple build units, different turret options for your tanks, all the fun that makes 40K fun.
Yeah.
But it's always just a building block.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
Make your choices inside the building block. Don't worry about points. Play this building block against that building block. They're relatively balanced. Who cares?
Yeah.
And I think that's achievable. I think that takes the pressure off of.
And you can always be putting new ones out, like they're just like they are now. Like they're always putting out new combat patrols. They're always putting out you can always be putting new ones out.
I think a detachment-based game like Spearhead, but that can stack on top of itself using their keyword system, would be the best of Kill Team applied to 40K, right? Here's this Kill Team. It's 10 models. You only need 6 of them in the game. Build whichever ones you want. Mix and match as you play. Try different variations and formats. Here's your Space Marine detachment. It's an impulsor tank, this many intercessors, a lieutenant. This box is the captain's bodyguard, where it's the honor guard plus the captain. You know what I mean? And just make them themed, and then allow you to mix and match them across different things. And that's it. And they're spearheads you can mix and match and combine. And I think there's some real learning for 11th edition that they could do as to how much thinking people want to do before they come to the table. Well, we did it.
Boom, boom, boom.
And how much they want to engage with it that could be applied to Warhammer 40,000 that I think would then give you the stepping stone from Kill Team for that on-ramp if you wanted to, and then be its own on-ramp, which Combat Patrol just isn't right now.
Right.
It's just it feels like a watered-down version of 40K. Have it be its own thing. And then you've got a 3-tiered, manifestly different system for having your Warhammer 40K collection. Ultimate cinematic super skirmish, separate game system, more sort of like curated, I don't have to make a million decisions version like Spearhead is to AOS, and then the full court press 4-hour-long games of,
that those guys love. They do love it. They love the hell out of it.
And it's still there for them then.
It's there.
And the people that want that and want to talk about it online and have it be the real play to play 40K.
I know people don't want to be like, oh, there can't be 2 ways to play a game. It's like there already is and there always has been.
Always.
Right?
That's it.
Those 2 communities have always been at odds the entire existence of wargaming. So just admitting it and trying to
accept each other.
And trying to make 2 unique experiences for those people, I think is healthy and fine.
And the fact that workshops made a new experience for the Warhammer gamer that's been accepted. No one's trying to make, but what they had to do is make it a whole other game.
They did,
for it to be okay. Because when it was a light version of 40K, it's like, well, why wouldn't I just play 40K?
Yeah. Good question.
Right? I don't know. I answer that.
Yeah.
That's my wish list. And I think that comes down to the heart of what's missing in the middle between these 2 things. Why was Kill Team so successful? Why did they need this little bucket to catch these enthusiasts of that tabletop wargaming?
Because I think you're right in saying that, actually, and I think it's a good point to end on is the dial is very much like all the way up or all the way down right now. You're either like only doing like really small little squads or whatever for Kill Team, or you're like committing to doing a massive project. Like, you know, there are a lot of people that would fall in the middle that like, you know, no, yeah, I can paint more than just a kill team, but
Exactly.
I also don't want to have like, you know, 80 models.
I'm thinking of the marketing things. You could have like a series of kill teams that come up that add up to the box that you release as a detachment, and then that detachment gets added to whatever the detachment. Like, there's so many ways that you could market as like a multi-layered thing that people could add up to. And I think, and then like, it's almost like doing that part play program where it's like build a 40K army over the course of a year through a magazine. Like, you could do that internally with kill team leveling up to whatever this detachments thing is to whatever big 40K is in the end. And then you just have this, like, you're not trying to jump like off the waterfall. You get to go in, learn to swim, get to midstream, and then go over the falls at the end of it all. Like, you're not trying to do too much all at once. That could be off-putting. And as it is their biggest and only ever going to get bigger now franchise, right? It is the biggest intellectual property they have. I think being intentional about what your customers can and want to engage with and what they're going to engage with is just going to make them more successful. And they're nothing if not willing to fucking start over every 3 years. So just get smart with it. You have these winning strategies in other systems. Why can't you apply it to your biggest one?
Yeah. Well, how long do you think until we see some of the kill teams? Obviously like a game where I go immediately to be like, wow, I wonder if they're planning with future intellectual properties through like some of these video games and shows and stuff they do to do like direct product things in their game. Like,
absolutely.
Yeah,
if we don't get like
you'd be like just throwing money away.
It'd be stupid not to have like a bespoke like Space Marine 3 kill team.
Because they're doing it for Black Library.
Yeah.
They're making every Black Library character. Like this weekend on pre-order, they're like, there's a
guard squad.
The Acadian guard squad. I'm like,
why aren't they a kill team?
Good set of
Why
models.
aren't they a kill team?
Yeah.
Like, they should just be a kill team.
Yeah,
it should be them plus a 5-man sprue of Acadians, and that's a kill team.
Yeah.
Just make it a cool character kill team.
Cool.
Like,
but it still is.
It's that they will definitely get there eventually. There's got to be a venue for these things to land. Well, there it is. We did it. We've rounded out the day. We didn't get too crazy. We just wished us a bunch of things. We just wrote the playbook for when this comes true for Workshop. I hope they enjoy it. It's free, guys. Just us handing off. I know you're watching. Thank you. Like and subscribe. Like and subscribe, guys. Do it. I know you want to. Workshop's secretly my biggest patron.
They're hate watching your show.
Yeah, just funneling for ideas. I'm like what's the weirdos from that the Minority Report. I'm like the minority.
Oh, yeah.
I'm the weirdo like prognosticator in the pool. I gotta be plugged into the Minority Report. I'm gonna get murdered. So where can people find you guys on the YouTube?
Yeah, we do silly videos like this 3 times a week on YouTube / Lords of War Games and Hobbies. And then we also have a Patreon page where we answer questions directly from people if they have burning industry questions about like what goes on in our shop, or why don't we carry more of this product? What the hell, guys?
Trench Crusade. Yeah. Answer all your burning.
We almost didn't say
I know.
The whole video.
Shit, this video would never get watched.
Good thing we did.
We had to say Trench Crusade.
You saved it there at the end.
I know at the end. Trench Crusade. If you want to hear more about Trench Crusade, and or if you just want to eat this pastable all at once, all 4 of these previous episodes were live recorded on Patreon over the course of the day with my patrons. There's lots of Q&A and stuff in between, and you can find that at patreon.com/Guerrilla Miniature Games if you're not sick of us by now. And of course, if you're watching this on YouTube, like and subscribe, smash that bell, and I'll see you guys later.